Hello and welcome to the EV Cafe. It's the first one of 2023 and what a show we have on for you today. Kick off the new year. So quick round of introductions. My name is Johnny Berry and in my day job I am the head of decarbonisation for Norden Vehicle Solutions, but most importantly I am the moderator for this session to make sure we stay on time and to the agenda. I'm looking at you, Paul.
What you suggest I talk, so I'll go next. I'm Paul Kirby. I'm the electric van man in my day job. What, have I broken the rules already? Oh, who cares? Over to somebody else.
Hello, I'm John Curtis and I look after the mailroom. Moving on, who's next? Sam O.
It has to be me because there's no one else left.
We're missing Sarah.
Everybody. Yeah, so Sam Clark, my day job is Chief Vehicle Officer at GridServe, and today I'm doing the introductions and just talking nonsense as per usual. Sarah will be joining us shortly, but welcome everybody. As always, it's a pleasure. And Johnny, I'll hand over back to you.
Paul, what's on the topic for today?
Innovate or die. And that's our topic for today. It's an exciting topic, and I mean, there is a big question here, isn't there? One we might discuss through the day. Sam and I kind of have this little sword fight about when is innovation actually classed as innovation? Is it when it's on the road, as it were, or in life, or is it at its inception, the thought of it? And bringing it to market, that whole process. It's a great, exciting time, and we're going to hear from two innovators in the space today, and also some supporting people as well. So yes, that's us. Our subject for today is innovation and how it's coming to market.
It's worth reflecting that British Volt is innovation. British Volt isn't alive anymore, and that's hugely sad. And so I do have some sympathy with Sam's view that if it's not out there, not doing the thing, a darned good idea ain't a great deal of use.
And that's why it's exciting to talk to the guys that we are talking to today, one really on the cusp of production and one already in production with real innovation in our space, dramatically changing the landscape. And that is so super exciting.
Which is what we need, right? We need innovation. We need our clients rely on the suppliers to innovate, or new suppliers come to market with innovative products.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to go to you, John, and ask you, why is it important for the EV Cafe to have sponsors and partners?
It's massively important because we don't just sit on webinars and do very little else. We are fully engaged now in training the industry, in helping people to see not just what we think, but how to do the things that we do. And our partners, our sponsors, enable us to go out and speak to audiences face-to-face with businesses to help them to make that transition. We've done it. We've all been there and we've had different impacts, but we've done the do. And our job is to help network people, help them to join together, to collaborate, to make a difference. And all of our partners join us in doing that. So GEOTAB, the AA, My Energy, EV Civils, Interval, and a couple of people who are on here today who may be able to add weight and value to our proposition.
Yes, and we do actually have an exciting announcement, don't we, this morning? So we have a new partnership. So Sam, I don't know if you want to talk to us a bit about this new partner of ours.
Well, yes, or perhaps I will talk about the two people who are about to appear on screen, and then they can do that. They can talk about who they are, I think. But anyway, so we have on soon to arrive. Steve and Nikki, if you can hear me, by all means appear. There you are.
Welcome to the cafe.
We've got two candidates here, very, very lovely people who I shall do an intro for now. So Steve is leading the coordination of the EV strategy across the Direct Line Group, to ensure they are developing the tools, services and products that make the transition to EV as smooth as possible for colleagues and customers. Interesting fact, he once scored a goal at Cardiff City's ground, Ninian Park. I kind of want to know more about that, but at the same time, we've got to move on. And the lovely Nikki, who seems to never not smile, I've discovered, which is wonderful. Is Direct Lines Group's head of UK Insurance Business Solutions and Churchill Expert, which is focused on helping commercial customers by providing insurance solutions for fleets, salary sacrifice schemes, and mobility subscription. Her interesting fact is that a member of the ELO performed at her 21st birthday. Now we can't do initials on this forum, and I've got to be honest, I didn't know what ELO meant, so I had to Google it. So is it indeed the Electric Light in Orchestra?
It is, which shows my
indeed.
age, Sam, as well,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Which is a bit
Child.
worrying.
Well, so yes, so there are your introductions, and you are from Direct Line, and there's a very good reason why you are on our webinar this morning. So over to you guys. Tell us exactly why.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for the introduction, and hello to the wonderful EV community as well as the team. So yeah, you're right. We're delighted to announce that we're joining the sponsorship team, the Select Club, under our Churchill brand. As you say, we work for Direct Line Group, and we've got lots of great things. Oh yes, very good. Very on brand. Here he is, Churchy.
Oh yes.
So we're really excited. We're really excited to be part of the selection or the selected sponsor team. And the reason why we're excited is because the theme of today's session really about innovate or die. You know, we can see that electrification is an opportunity to transform the market in terms of how people are buying, using, accessing their vehicles, and insurance is a part of that supply chain. So for us, we've been insuring EVs since they arrived in the UK, and we always try to be at the forefront of that. We're Tesla's official kind of insurance partner in the UK, and we all know that they're innovating in this space and really driving electrification forward. So for us, working with you guys is a great opportunity to help educate colleagues, customers, and also the people who are part of your community in terms of the role that insurance can play, and then how we can support people with their push to help customers make that transition to EV. And I'll pass over to Nikki because she's right on the cutting edge of some of the things that we're doing.
Great, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so as Steve said, really excited to have the opportunity to work with you all and take this partnership forward, this sponsorship forward. From my point of view, what's really exciting is that, you know, as Steve said, EV is a huge focus for our business, not only for our individual customers, but also for businesses. And certainly what we're seeing in our space is that new models for people to access vehicles are very much coming to the fore. So in the intro, we talked about salary sacrifice, subscription. And what we're seeing is, particularly in the subscription space, very interestingly, is that, you know, customers are using subscriptions as ways to actually get familiar with EVs. So we're seeing huge growth in this area, more and more companies coming to us to talk about subscriptions and talk about, you know, what we can do to help them on their journey to providing usership-based propositions, but also what we can do to help them in their transition to EVs as well. So, you know, having the opportunity to work with you all to really, I suppose, share what we're about, but also learn from you in terms of what customers and businesses are looking for in EVs and in their insurance related to that is really important to us. So, you know, hopefully that's a win-win, and we can give our insights and get insights that will help us as well.
Nikki, you're already popular. We've just had a comment in the chat box, and it says, Steve is hogging the camera on my device. We need to see your smile.
Yeah.
So come on, lean into it. There we go.
I mean, I can smile as well.
Yeah, but it's just not as good. Sorry.
It's not as good. It's not as good. I don't deny that. I don't deny that. Sam.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Sam, it's now time to welcome our first guest speaker for today, another partner of the EV Cafe and innovating a lot in this industry. So, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Johnny. Okay, so Phil, if you'd like to turn your screen on, there he is. Did it before I even finished my sentence. Right, so Phil Barnes has been working in the fleet and technology sector and software sectors for 15 and 30 years, respectively. Based in Dublin since 2005, he covers the entire island, delivering technology to support businesses in efficient strategies. He is very much focused on the strategy for change, the drive for transition, hence GEOTAB and the combination of their market-leading technologies and collaborations, which I think is a key word here in this particular forum, with the right partners to push sustainability. So you are definitely in the right place, Phil.
Yep.
Something that most of you don't know about him, he once owned a prize-winning limousine pedigree bull. I mean, haven't we all? Phil, thank you for coming on today and welcome to you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Great to be here. And just to add on the Limousin Bull, his name was actually Prince Philip, but there's another story there, and it's not for now. But yeah, so the beauty of GEOTAB and innovation. You know, I joined 12 months ago. I've worked in the space for a good while, and I know my accent doesn't give it away that I'm living in Dublin, but I have done for nearly 20 years. The beauty of GEOTAB is the fact that they are all about data innovation. What we're trying to do is drive people's mindsets to change. We've got to change. Change is going to happen. It's inevitable. And we're so used to sitting in the ICE world of, combustion engines and having, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to continue to do it. So we're going to give people confidence with the data that we can supply them, which gives them insight, gives them ability to measure, which allows them to manage better the objectives that they're trying to achieve. So, my role really is to bring this global technology. And just for a scale and a bit of context, GEOTAB currently has 3.2 million connected vehicles on the planet. Now, when we put that into Ireland only has 2.7 million vehicles in total. So from a contextual point of view, we have got more than the whole of the island of Ireland. So we've got a huge amount of data, a huge amount of aggregated data, and a huge amount of power to help businesses in every locality to try and make these changes that inevitably are going to come, 2030, 2035, and so on and so forth. And a lot of companies are scared about how they go about doing these things. So we take that data and make it useful, make it insightful. We give them a transition, sustainability and platform with a dashboard which allows them to see where changes can be made, because we all know, we've all done it as we've all aged on this planet. Making a big step is a lot harder than doing a lot of small steps. If you do a lot of small steps, you will get to the end of the marathon. If you make one big step and you do it really fast, good chance you'll run out of breath, and as we were saying before, you might die. So the innovation is about doing it a step at a time. GEOTAB being the global presence, we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but the beauty of their agility as in their size is that we can take that technology and provide it locally. And that's my job here in Ireland. I take their technology and I deliver it to strategic partners around the island of Ireland, north and south, and help them deliver to their customers through collaboration, through the right partners, giving them the right data to help them make transition into the EV space, reduce their emissions, and give them a platform to be successful in their sustainability goals, both from a government side, from their own sector space, and so forth. So that's in a very short space, a nutshell of what I do here in GEOTAB in Ireland.
What's Ireland's market like there, Phil? Is there much in terms of telematics that's already in the marketplace, or are you breaking new ground?
Yeah, so the beauty of the GEOTAB part is that it's a very saturated and mature market here in Ireland, but it's very traditional in the way they do it. They all talk about tracking. We never mention that word. We're not interested in tracking. We're interested in getting data from the vehicle, getting data which they can then make a change, which would say this vehicle can be used as an EV rather than as an ICE vehicle. We do all the stuff that traditional companies do as well. We just do a lot more.
So you're taking data, Phil, and giving insight.
Correct. That's exactly it. And giving, I mean, our mantra is management by measurement. We have to measure something to make it so that you can manage it better. If you've not got good data, everything after that is going to be wrong. So it's about making sure we've got reliability and strong, powerful data that you can stand on.
And where's the EV market at in the island of Ireland?
Well, it's new. It's it's in its fledglings state at the moment, and obviously the guys on here, we're hoping to expand that into this territory over the coming months and into later into this year. And we're also creating a couple of partnerships with some local people here that do similar things to what you work on, Paul, and stuff, and try and collaborate those things, because again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We're already doing powerful work around the globe. what we're trying to do is bring that power into a locality which doesn't yet have it.
We will go to the mailroom shortly, but for now, thank you very much, Phil. We'll ask you to come back in approximately 20 minutes for when we open the floor to
Thanks, guys.
questions. But for now, it's time to welcome our special guest for the show, a true innovator. Sam, would you like to do the honours?
Video first.
What? Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
There's a
Video first.
Yes, yes. Roll the VT. And
Roll
Sarah
VT.
Sloan is in the house.
Yay.
Hi guys, I'm sorry.
Right, we're going to go to the video and then we'll come back. Right, so it should. Oh, desktop 2. There we go.
Told you about this, John. Told you.
There you go. It's done.
Yay.
Nice.
Paul, before you make a start, have you optimized it for video and turn the sound
Yes,
on?
I've done all
Yeah.
that. Right, so we take 2.
Yep.
Shall we?
Now, my dulcet tones after that beautiful video doesn't seem quite fitting, does it? But there we are. Just gonna have to do my best. So, Carl-Magnus, if you're ready, by all means, put your camera on. Okay, so we are very lucky to have Carl-Magnus Norden with us today. He's the founder of Volta Trucks, as we've just seen, a company which aims to accelerate the transition to fully electric trucks. He founded it in 2019. He has over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience with a proven history of starting and scaling businesses in multinational settings, having lived in 6 European countries and started businesses in most of them across multiple industries. I have no idea how he did that. Now focused on the electrification of transport. Carl-Magnus is a Swedish national sharing his name between Stockholm, his time even, between Stockholm, Paris, and the other markets Volta Trucks is serving. Carl-Magnus, it's a pleasure to have you. I, in my day job, spent most of last year working on electric truck charging. So it is wonderful. Stop it. Stop it. It's she's in the same room, by the way. It's going to be distracting for the rest of the day. I apologize. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on charging. So to see vehicles like yours coming to fruition is amazing. So over to you, and please do tell us more.
Carl-Magnus Norden, sorry, before you start, did you want to share the fun fact? So Sam, do you have that to hand?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I do. So shall I share it? Fun fact about a guest. So despite the fact he can drive, he doesn't actually own a car and had no interest or experience of trucks before coming up with the idea back in 2016. Brilliant. There we go.
Brilliant.
No, and great to see you all in this virtual cafe. And I think, Paul, last time we saw each other was when you actually tested drive here in Paris. So it's great to coming back. Lots of things has happened since last summer. And well, but as you see, you have seen the video, so I don't have too much to add. But I tried to say a couple of things. I'm actually sitting here in our newly opened Paris offices that I hope all of you will visit. But I think a frequent question is really, why did I start this company? And I think I had two prime drivers. One is what we all are seeing more and more these days. I mean, climate change. It's happening. Right now, flooding in California and no snow in the Alps, and last summer, forest fires all over the place. But going back to when I really came up with this idea in 2016, obviously it was already there, but not as accelerated. I think it has accelerated over these last few years. Why did I enter this? Because when you heard politicians talking at the time, and I think a little bit the same right now, is they said, okay, we should do something, but they talked about 2030 or 2040 or even further, which we are seeing more and more. That might be too late. So we have to act now as quickly as possible. And in our case, we talk a lot about speed and scale, getting to the market, but also scaling is. It's good to produce 10 tracks or 20 tracks, but it's better 10 or 10,000 or 20,000 or something like that. And in our case, I also want to encourage everybody else. We have to create a new ecosystem around this. The fossil or diesel ecosystem is obviously developed over a number of years, but we all have to work together, all the different parties to accelerate this change. So climate change is obviously one thing. Electric drive, CO2 emissions reduction is a good thing, is a global problem. But the other problems that we see in cities where we concentrate, really distribution traffic, is also accident rates between trucks and pedestrians and bikers. And what I found out when I came a little bit further into this is there is a driver shortage in the industry. So electric drive helps some of that. Then, of course, as a serial entrepreneur, you have to see, okay, is there a business to do here? So definitely we also had a business angle, and often, as you know, in industries where the established players have been for a long time, like we see in the truck industry, they are often very good at small incremental change, saving 2% of consumption or increasing the efficiency a couple of percent, etc. But when we have a big technological shift like we have when we go from the diesel ecosystem to the electric ecosystem, often the big players are slow to adapt for a number of reasons. And then they are like the oil tanker, it takes them a few years to shift the direction. And obviously a startup like ours is more like a speedboat. We can adapt, we can change, we can iterate, etc. all the time. So from my point of view, then I said, okay, there is an opportunity here. And with two, of course, creating a great business, but also having accelerate the impact from the old system to the new. So as you said earlier on, I'm a serial entrepreneur since a number of years. I've had some successes and a number of failures, but you learn out of everything. One thing that I've learned is really to focus. You should try to focus your business. And maybe even before that is really testing your good idea, or that you think is a good idea, really by going out and selling something to the market. So in my case, and as I said before, I didn't understand this, so I had to go back to school. I took the agency for a converter in the Netherlands, and that gave me the opportunity to go out to the market and basically sell. And then you get the real market studies is maybe interesting, but the real feedback. And what I then heard was after sales service is super important, uptime is super important, and obviously the whole suite of changes, electrification, and so on and so on. So that's a little bit where we come from. And you have to tell me when I talk too much. I'm happy to answer questions. I can go on for a little bit while. But anyway, what I want to finish with, we want to also, I think is important, is when you start a company, are you solving any real problems? And in our case, we have the environmental problem. So globally, CO2 emission, locally, NOx, particles, and noise. We have accident rates in cities. When I came to Transport for London, they said 4% of the traffic is trucks, and they are involved in 78% of fatal accidents with bikers and 26% with pedestrians or something. Wow. Another big problem. And then we have the driver shortage. All of them we try to do something about, and that's great fun.
Thank you very much. Could I kindly ask that the EV Cafe team and our audience hold fire on questions just for the time being? As always, we are behind time, but please don't go anywhere, Carl-Magnus. We will have lots of questions for you very shortly, but we must hear from our last guest for today before we officially open the mailroom. So over to you, Sam. I didn't write the agenda.
Really annoying. So many
It.
questions. So many questions. All right, we shall move on because quite right. Johnny is right. We've got to keep to time. Alisdair, Couper, you're next. Alisdair, as you'll soon find out, is a Scotsman that went to Yorkshire 27 years ago. He's a passionate engineer with background in the marine industry and high-speed diesel propulsion systems, but we won't hold that against him. No. He started DTS in 1998 before becoming part-owned by the Royal Terberg Group in 2000. In 2023, we'll see Alisdair being involved in logistics for over 25 years. He is now championing the introduction of EV trucks in the distribution and terminal yard space off highway, with recent deliveries of over 4 million to his rental customers in the UK. Little known fact, he is a Scot who has an interest in whiskey, but doesn't drink. I've not quite been able to get my head around that statement yet. But Alisdair, maybe you can elaborate, of course. But otherwise, welcome to the show.
There we go. Afternoon, everyone.
Thanks
for the invite. I think Paul's to blame for it. So,
usually is.
As Sam's aptly introduced me, I've been in the logistics, seaport, aviation, and defence sector for nearly 26 years. We've seen a dramatic change in what we're doing within our off-highway sectors. So we're working off-highway, not on-highway. We probably had a false start around about 5 years ago when we introduced electric to some of our customers in the UK, but the price was the challenge, without any doubt. We have historically supplied vehicles into mainland Europe since 2014. Some of those have been operating on the public highway. In fact, we were the first company to provide an electric powered tractor unit operating on the public highway in Germany back in 2014. We still do that today. So whilst the rules and regulations between Europe and the off-cast of the United Kingdom bring us some challenges, we saw with the change in the fuel duty in April this year, and post-COVID, and we saw that the market was changing. So financially for us, we had a product that was not financially competitive historically, which is today financially competitive. And that's been our big catalyst. Because we operate on the public off-highway, we need a financial win. And that financial win is important to us, and it's crucial to our customers, whereas on highway has a slightly different agenda. What we're seeing is that we are becoming a test bed for the future on highway customer. We've had big challenges in understanding charging infrastructure. We recently partnered with Vital EV and the Chem Power Solutions, which really helped us on that journey. Up until that, we were stumbling and bumbling along. So that's certainly been a game changer for us. As Sam talked about, there's no point in talking about it unless you're going to do it. So we did it, and we placed a very big order on our factory last year, 18 months ago, and we're taking delivery of vehicles without customers. And that's given the value of a commercial asset like these, that's a big risk. But our team are approaching the customer. The customer's interested in engaging. We've supplied a different business model than what we normally do to introduce electric. And 14 months on from our first one in the UK, our customers are enjoying the journey, taking the learning from it, starting to talk about how they can integrate that learning with their on-highway future requirements, because charging off-highway is as much an Achilles heel as it is on-highway. If you're not careful, you can have a lovely big building, but if you've not got enough power to power a charger, then you've got a problem. So there's a big thing to look at. And the other interesting point is data. We never We never offer a customer a product unless we've done a data analysis of his current product. If he doesn't have data available, we give him a truck and allow him to capture that data over 2 or 3 months. And then we feed that back into what an EV might look like in that application. So data is king, infrastructure is king. And once we've got both of those, then potentially we can introduce an EV solution. Without either of those, it's just speculation. But what we're seeing is that with the right data, with the right infrastructure, EV is flying. We're delighted that we also introduced last week a test vehicle into the United Kingdom. Santa was very kind to ABP Terminals under the Catapult program funded by the UK government. And we've brought a hydrogen-powered, hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, which drives an electric drivetrain, and that's operating in the port of Immingham for a period of time. So electric is at the core. It can either be purely electric or hydrogen fuel cell electric. So we're dissecting all these different sectors across the world. What we also see quickly before I wrap up is that electric is also acting as a catalyst for some other activity for us off highway. And those other activities are automation, full autonomy, or teleoperation remote driving. Electrical drivetrains allow us to control and do various other things much easier. In the logistics sector, we're seeing onboard batteries and charging on board with the right charger is not a problem. In our big ports and terminals in the future, I think we'll probably look at some large battery swap technology systems. In fact, we're building some of them at the moment in the Far East. So USA, America, Asia, Pacific, Middle East, it's all customers for us. They're not all doing the same thing. So as a global player, we're having to flex to accommodate a global market. And then, of course, we see the challenges of material and supply chain, which is certainly outstripping demand. Demand is outstripping supply chain at the moment. And that is certainly holding a few of the things up that we're wanting to do. So really, that's where we are at the moment, gents. And thank you for having us along today.
Thank you very much. Before we officially open the mailroom, please can I ask that all the guests come back online? It's the moment we've been waiting for. Questions, questions, questions.
And we've got a lot of them.
Yeah, haven't we just? Carl-Magnus, let's start with you if we can. An anonymous attendee, and you really don't need to be anonymous because we don't bite, but an anonymous attendee has said, when will we see a production-ready, UK-registered Volta Zero on the road? Can you tell us?
Yes, we have been through, different testing vehicle cycles and all that. So right now, the forecast is that we will start a production, full-scale production during this quarter, probably somewhere late February or during March. And then, of course, you have to build the boxes and things like that. So I think we will see it somewhere early summer in the UK. We already have a number of customers that want to do pilot testing with us. We have already been driving around in both London and Paris with our test vehicles. But the next stage is really that they should be able to use them in their operations. And that starts, I think, somewhere there early summer.
And there's a contributor called Joe Dilworth who's asked a couple of questions, really insightful ones. How did you decide on a 125-mile range? And bearing in mind that it's a large commercial vehicle, London and Paris seem curious places to test vehicles with narrow streets. Could you tackle both of those for us?
No, and if I start with the second one, London and Paris, obviously, well, firstly, we're quite narrow focused. So we're only electric, we're only mid-mile, mid and last mile, we're only mid-range. And we are focusing on 2 box types, so an ambient and refrigerated. Then selecting and if you are narrow, of course, and to have some sales or a market, the bigger the potential market, the better it is. That's one factor from a basic commercial point of view, but it's also the biggest cities have the biggest problems. So where can we make the most use, basically? So that's why we started. We said the biggest cities in Europe, we start there. So right now we have service facilities in Paris, in London, in the Rhine-Ruhr area, and we just signed in Madrid. Then the range. If I talk to many fleet operators in these cities, like the Vishenke that we're very close to, in Paris here, the average is about 70 kilometers a day. So that's what, 50 miles or something like that. So 125 miles is more than enough for most use cases. Of course, more battery, you could drive a little bit further. That in most cases is not necessary, but it costs more money and it takes payload. So we have, right now, our biggest is 225 kilowatt hours. And we have 2 packs, 150. But everybody wants to go for the bigger one because nobody wants to be stopping somewhere in central London or something. But I think over time, when they get more used to it, they will see the benefit of course, a lower price and more payload.
And I think this answers Chris Ramsey's question. Chris Ramsey is a pole-to-pole explorer, and he's taking an electric vehicle from South Pole to North Pole. Absolute madman. And he has asked the question, electric trucks are making great strides, and he'd be interested to know how you see the charging landscape in the UK evolving to support e-trucks on our motorway network. What do you need to make Volta trucks really work efficiently and effectively from the charging infrastructure?
Well, the beauty of our use case is also basically distribution. So it's back to base. The trucks start in the morning in the depot. Well, they load them and then they go take this, or whatever it is, 70, 80 kilometers drive, and they come back in the evening, which is a number of benefits. So for us, we are not depending on public charging network. We install the network with our customers in their depots. And the beauty is, of course, that then they can charge overnight. So it's off-peak take, which is good for the grid and all that. It's also, as they often stand there maybe for 8, 10 hours a night, we can slow charge or relatively slow charge. And 22 kilowatt hours is our recommendation. It's better for the batteries. It's better for the grid connection then, and we can service more trucks on the same electric supply. So there is a number of benefits with that.
Cool. Alisdair, I wonder if you could take a question for us. Anthony Clayton is asking if the news and media are killing innovation. They're constantly negative, constantly saying electric vehicles can't work. You're making them work. Do you think that the media have a responsibility to support you and other organizations that are being hugely innovative and pushing boundaries?
I think some of the media are, John. They are supporting us. They're promoting us.
Good.
You know, it's a good thing. I think the biggest challenge is government. It's not the media. The government's making all these big things, big words, and empty promises. To be honest, we've got lots of things already in play around the world. I'm struggling to understand why we keep funding the same thing in different countries instead of moving on to new things and innovative things. So we are in an environment that's deluged with media, social media, print media. So it's definitely not holding us back.
Good news. Phil, would you say that the Irish market is very similar and that there's a lot of really good stuff going on and government needs to step up, or are they quite active in Ireland?
It's a good point. They typically, the Irish market is lagging slightly behind where the UK and maybe mainland Europe is. Okay, it's not that it's behind, it just takes a little bit longer for it to evolve. So where Ireland is now is probably where the UK was 2 or 3 years ago. The government are doing similar things to the UK government and putting quite stern targets because they want to get votes. They want to, it's good news for them to actually get a vote and get them into government. And that's one of the challenges that we have, because just as Alisdair was saying there's a few empty promises coming. So there's a big challenge in Ireland to hit the numbers. To give you an example, they've put a target of 945,000 vehicles to be electric by the end of this decade, which is what, 7 years away, 6.5 years away. They only sell 100,000 vehicles a year currently. and they're all ICE vehicles, or majority of ICE vehicles. So there is a big shift to come, and whether it'll actually happen, and well, as it stands today, it won't happen. But they're making big empty promises essentially, and yeah, we've all got to try and backfill it.
Question, if I may, from me, John Curtis, to Stephen and Nikki, our newest sponsors and partners. Is there any evidence from your data that electric vehicle drivers are safer? They have less accidents?
That is a great question, John.
Thank you.
So I think what I'd say is, at the moment, the adoption is still at the early stages, so it's hard to know. There are some hypotheses, so things such as when people transferring into an EV, they're learning about range. They've still got things like you guys talk about a lot: charge anxiety, range anxiety. So does that impact how they'll drive the vehicle? Will they drive more conservatively? Will they drive slower while they get used to the idea of driving an electric car, not a petrol or an ICE vehicle? But as you know, probably, insurance companies, we love data. We've got loads and decades of historical data for ICE vehicles. We have a very, very small amount of data, equivalent data for EV vehicles. So I guess part of the innovation for us is learning from that data and seeing how does that change things, and then how will that impact how we view, rate, price those vehicles. A big area for us then is also on the repair side. So what kind of repairs and incidents do we see with the EVs that we have? Because again, they tend to have more technology. If you look at a Tesla with the technology on that vehicle, it tends to be that they are involved rather than the instigator of the incident where those cars are involved. And then also things like the cost, because that technology means a lot of the EVs, because they're all new vehicles, the cost of those vehicles to repair at the moment is probably higher than an ICE vehicle, and that's going to change over time. So it's probably too early to say, John, but we look forward to finding out as we go on that journey.
So the short answer is yes, then we are safer. Thank you kindly. Alisdair. Alisdair, question for you about the colour of hydrogen that you use in your hydrogen fuel cells. Is it blue? Is it green? Is it grey? Is it colourless and odourless? Does it come from fossil fuel, basically, or is it from renewable sources?
At the moment, our hydrogen has to be clean hydrogen. So it has, most of what we are getting is electrolysis produced hydrogen. So it's very, very clean. We're on the early part of that journey. We potentially will see a nice hydrogen engine in 2024 for testing as well, which again needs a clean product. We will hopefully have a dual fuel vehicle in test by the end of this year, which will be hydrogen on cruise and diesel on power increase. So quite controversial, but we have certain sectors that may be important to us on. So we are being delayed at this moment in time with the availability of hydrogen in the suitable quantities that we need to carry out testing. A 40-foot trailer only carries about 400 kilos of hydrogen. So it takes a lot of trailers to provide us with hydrogen. So hydrogen availability, John, is a problem for us at the moment in this test phase across Europe, not just in the UK. So it is across Europe, but we are looking at clean, very clean hydrogen for the fuel cells. They don't like anything else. We think engines will be, ICE engines will be a bit more tolerant, but fuel cells certainly are not. So,
thank you, Alisdair. Appreciate that. Happy to keep going, JB.
Sarah's
I
got
think the floor, give our EV Cafe some opportunity. And I can see Sarah's got a virtual hand up. So
I have. I don't know if you can hear me because I'm using Sam's screen, so it looks like I'm puppeteering. Just move your mouth a bit, Sam. Looks like you're talking then. Brilliant. It was a question for Alisdair, actually. I wondered if you could keep giving us that European perspective. I know Richard Valentine, the Chief Exec at British Ports Authority, recently said 125,000 jobs across the UK, and these really vital coastal communities have been central to supporting growth for so long, but UK authority isn't doing all it can to support that dry side electrification. You guys are playing a huge part in. What's your experience on a European scale of that? Do you feel governments are doing enough to support that?
So governments allow us in Europe, initially Germany and further afield, for funding for our assets, because they work off highway and on highway. In the United Kingdom, we're not allowed any of that funding. So that's not being encouraged at all, Sarah. We're not allowed to operate we're allowed to cross a public highway, but not operate over distance, which again means that we're restricted. So unlike the rest of Europe, where we can operate restricted mileage on the public highway, we can't do that in the UK. Funding is available in Europe. It's not available in the UK for our vehicle type. So unfortunately, the British government are doing everything to hold us back. We are having customers out there that want to push ahead. There's no funding available. So large blue chip companies that operate in mainland Europe and also operate in the UK, they're having to operate two different policies because they've got funding in one country but no funding in the UK. So it's quite a dilemma for us. We've been lobbying the UK government for over 2.5, 3 years now, and we're getting nowhere. It's just like a bucket of porridge. So you know, lots of talking, even in the run up to COP, the recent COP event in Glasgow. Lots of excitement. Nothing came of it. Died a death.
Salty porridge, presumably. Yeah. Salty porridge. Good man.
Yeah. Lots of talk, no action, Sarah. So.
I had a feeling you'd say that. I know it's been a problem for a long time, and I know UKPN are particularly keen to speak to anybody in port authority areas who will fund that electrification process. Well,
we are working on a number of large projects at the moment, but the customers are having to fund them themselves in UK, whereas on mainland Europe, the port sector is slightly different because there is some port funding available that may be divertible into electrical infrastructure solutions. We're working on a large project with UKPN at London, at Heathrow, but that's self-funded. There's no government money for it. So,
well, thank goodness you are. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Who was first, Paul or Sam?
Sam.
It was indeed me, but that's very kind. Thank you. I've got one for Carl-Magnus, actually, and indulge me, if you will, on entrepreneurialism, Carl. Sorry, Carl-Magnus. I too have founded and run many companies. Some have been successful, and like you, some haven't. My question to you is that I ran a logistics company for a long time, and I knew nothing about logistics when I started. You also, in your interesting facts, said that you didn't know much about trucks either. So if there were two things that spring to mind, both on the positive and the negative, in regards to setting up a company on a product you didn't know anything about, I'm sure there's many positives and negatives in the concept of what you tried to do. But if you could pluck sort of one, this was really good because I was new to this. I had a blank canvas and that's why I did this, versus, well, actually, I didn't know much about it and therefore that held me back here. I just wondered if there were a couple of different thoughts you might have had in terms of how that sort of blank canvas approach was a positive or a negative.
Well, I think the good thing for, as I said before, the good thing for me is that the industry had to change. So, I mean, many of if you used to work in a certain pattern and you think you know the rules of the game, and you play another game, it's not necessarily an advantage to know the rules of the old game. So that creates quite a unique opportunity. Then, of course, and I think when you start something, especially, I mean, if you start a truck OEM, it's quite good to be a little bit naive. You know, sometimes I see the teams we have for software, etc., and I almost reflect that if I had known all this, I would never have started a company. I mean, it's so many things to learn. But I think the solution for that is you have to add something to the formula. But if you are then not believing that you know everything yourself, you of course try to hire the best people, the experts in the different parts of the business. And I think that's what we have managed to do. So, you know, some of the Ian Collins that came in very early. I mean, masses of years of experience, started the London taxi company or technical lead. We have, in all positions, we have people really, you know, with a lot of experience and competence in the area. So you can turn it around. When the rules of the game are changing, you have a better chance, I think.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you. Cool.
Indeed. So my question was probably quite similar to Carl-Magnus, the question you just asked, Carl-Magnus, but Carl-Magnus, we've heard a little bit about the government, and Alisdair's touched on the fact that it's a bit of a challenge, and obviously we've heard commentary around British Volt, and I'm not asking you to comment on a particular story, but do you see the UK as a harder market in which to operate with the government versus Paris, because you've got a very clear, you know, English-French kind of divide? Not that we're all familiar with an English-French divide here in the UK, but what's your perception of the two countries, and are we an easier country to work with or a harder country to work with?
No, I think often you talk about what's the government support, or how do government can encourage this transformation. And we are just, it's just a fact. I mean, subsidies helps, even regulation helps, like you have in London, whatever congestion charge and diesel-free zones or low emission zones, etc. It helps. In Paris, they have taken it one step further. They are basically supposed to ban diesel in 2024 in big parts of the city. So that encourages people to obviously look at this, or almost somebody looking 5 years ahead of now, they think better to start this process now and learning than finding out that we cannot, you know, distribute to our customers in a couple of years' time. You cannot build a business on subsidies. But we are just seeing, if everybody wants its snowballs to start moving, if you can reduce the risk for our customers by subsidies, obviously that helps the transition. So, and I think that's almost global. Everybody wants this to happen, but and there are, you know, there are leaders and followers, and if you encourage some of them, then hopefully more and more people are getting on the bandwagon. So it's good.
I think your next entrepreneurial steps should be in diplomacy. Well done. Thank you.
Apologies all, but that's actually our hour up. So I don't know where this time's gone, but please don't go anywhere unless you have another meeting, of course, because we now move into the EV Cafe after hours session. Why would you want to stay? Well, perhaps you'd want to stay and cancel your 1 o'clock meeting, because we'll be addressing more questions from you, which there are plenty of them, 27 I can see in the Q&A tab.
28.
And the highlight of the session will be Sarah delivering the EV Cafe news round. But sadly, I won't be staying as I have to go to another event, unfortunately. So I'll say my thank yous. Cheers, John. I'll say my thank yous and goodbye now, and have a nice EV Cafe takeaway, everybody.